Hey, hey, and welcome back, Soul Tribe. I'm so happy to have you here, and I want to revisit power in this episode. I know we talked about it in a previous one, but I just want to revisit and give you some tools and ideas to play with for when you're feeling powerless. And I think the first thing we need to do is just play with what we've already been given. What is power? How do we define that? Where do you get your power from? And if we start with the definition that we've inherited by society, when power is a noun, the dictionary would say that it's the ability to influence, control, or direct people, resources, or events to achieve a specific outcome. And there's a couple of problems with that I'm sure you've already figured out. The first is that we can't control things outside of us. So the second is that now we're attached to a specific outcome. So ironically, in our attempt to feel powerful, we actually feel really powerless because of these things outside of us that we can't control. And because now we're trying to achieve this specific outcome, which is also outside of our control. And so if we just stop to say, you know what, every idea, every word, every philosophy is a man-made construct, which is influenced by history and culture and religion, etc. And of course, it changes and evolves. But we're also human, and we can deconstruct it and challenge it and play with it and make it into something new. And so let that be our first act of self-empowerment. So what is self-empowerment? It's the ability to influence your own life, which I know almost seems like kind of silly because you think that you're constantly in control of your life. So what do you mean I don't have the ability to influence my life? And this is where we start to untangle the self from the collective. Because if I have the ability to control my own life, that means I have choice in the matter. I have agency. And when I have choice, then I have freedom because then I can decide how I want to choose. And that choice, that freedom gives me authority over the situation because I exercise my choice. And that's something that no one can take away from me. So that would be our first step, which might sound harsh, but it is really taking responsibility for our own experience. So let's just give an example. Like, what do we mean by this? So if we have the example that we work for an employer and we have a set of values and we signed up to work for this employer because they also said they had a set of values, but I really don't feel like they do. They don't back me up to do my job the way that I want to do it. And a physician, so I'm going to use patient care as an example, but I'm trying to give excellent care to this patient. And I'm not being equipped to do the job that I believe needs to be done to the standards that I believe need to be held. And so, of course, this is like a patient example, but please insert your own example here if it's with a client or a creative project or anything that you're trying to do. And so the first step is really to go back internally, to separate ourselves from the outside circumstance and just accept, of course, the company is exactly who the company is. That makes so much sense. They're not the ones here at the bedside taking care of the patient. I am. They need to take care of the bottom line of financial strategies, operational strategies. That's what they care about to survive so that I can take care of the patient. Why would I expect anything different from a company? That makes so much sense. Of course, they're going to act like a company. That's what they are. And I know that the ultimate purpose is to make the company better, but first we have to make ourselves better. And I promise this will circle all the way back around because what I ultimately want to walk us through is that when I'm trying to change something outside of me, I feel powerless. I feel angry. I feel frustrated. I blame that thing outside of me. The company's not letting me take care of the patients the way I should. And I don't become any part of the solution. I'm actually just part of the problem. Or if I'm not part of the problem, I'm definitely not part of the solution, right? And ironically, the way ultimately to change that thing is to first become part of the solution, is to first be better. Because I am part of the whole. What is this whole company if not a bunch of individuals? And maybe I can't change the company, but I sure as hell can change myself. And if I change myself and I am part of the company, I just have made the company better by making myself better. And it opens me up to continue to make change outside of me. So just to explore power a little bit more, if we're going to deconstruct it anyways, and we get to be the ones who recreate it, then I would ask you, what would the purpose be? If we said earlier that the purpose is not to control something outside of us and is not to be tied to the specific outcome, then what is the purpose of power? Why would we have a world that has power in it? And when I was talking to a friend, the response was to help people, to make the world a better place. But that presumes that the world is not a good place, that people need help. And that leaves us back in our original definition where we need to change the outcome. The world is a bad place, and that's the outcome I need to change. I need to change it so it's good. And now I'm also back to controlling something outside of me, the world, or that people need help. That presumes that people have a need left unfilled. So now I'm back to a specific outcome, fulfilling the need, and I'm back to something outside of me, people. And don't get me wrong, I am not saying that we shouldn't want to make this world a better place, that we shouldn't want to help people. That's a beautiful thing. And all I'm saying is maybe we don't start with the outside in. Maybe the journey is to start with ourselves and from there go to the inside out to make change. So if you know the theory of reflexivity, it's the way I understand it is basically a constant interchange between the self and the collective and the self, and how much does one influence the other. And I like to just use that common saying that the one is in the whole and the whole is in the one. So like we were saying earlier, if I can't change the world, but I change myself, I am in the world, and therefore I have changed the world by changing myself. And we're all a part of this. So just by me being a part of the world and me changing myself, I made an impact. And it might seem small, and it might seem like not a big enough impact, but I think that's really underestimating our contribution to ourselves and how everything flows out of that. I can't contribute to a solution if I'm not part of the solution first. I have to be the first part of the solution in order to bring that solution to others. Change is not insurmountable, but change has to start with ourselves. And it's the part that gets overlooked because we just rush towards blaming everyone else, blaming the world on being bad, blaming my company for not giving me what I need to do the best job that I can do. And I just want the world to change without ever looking at myself and inviting myself to be a part of the origin of that change, and get curious about how my beliefs keep me from contributing in a greater way. So let's go back then to what is the purpose of power. If it's not just to control things outside of us, but to control us, then maybe its purpose is to act as a guide, act as a compass, so that we are making decisions and supporting our behaviors or challenges, navigating the world with alignment with who we are here to be, what our beliefs are, what our values are, so that we can make these hard decisions. We can have some kind of framework to orient our behavior back to being in alignment with ourself, being at peace with ourself, being in full authenticity, being in our full truth. To me, that's what power is. It is someone who is onto themselves, mind, body, and spirit, someone who walks in alignment. That's the point of power. Okay, so let's take this back to this example, right, where we work at a company and we really care about this thing. Let's say it's a patient, and we don't think, they say that they hold our values, but they don't really hold our values. We don't really believe that they care, and we don't see that in their actions. They don't care really about the patient. Otherwise, they would be giving us more money, more resources, whatever, right? So we feel powerless to them because they're not equipping us to do our job in the way that we believe we should do it. So let's go back to our first step. Our first step is that we accept, yeah, absolutely, they're a company. That's exactly what they're going to do. And the second step is we take responsibility for our experience, meaning I can't blame the company for my anger. The company just is. It's a neutral circumstance. They're not providing X, Y, and Z, and that's neutral. I'm upset because it's my expectation. It's my belief that they should be providing this. I'm upset because I want to be upset. You know what? There's other people in this company who do the same job and they don't get upset by it. They don't find it a problem. They just think it's another Tuesday or whatever. So that's telling me that it's not the company that's making me feel that way, because not everybody has that experience. It is my belief system that is making me feel this way. And again, it's not to condone it, it's not to settle, and it's not to give up. It's first to gain choice, gain agency over our life. I'm not going to feel victimized by this company. I realize that I want to be angry about something that makes me angry. I want to be horrified by the things that are horrifying. I want to be enraged by the things I find enraging, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes people get really offended when I point this out, that it's not the company who's making you feel that way. It is your belief system, because, they feel like they're the ones in the wrong. And now I'm responsible for this terrible experience. I'm not saying that you're responsible for their inadequacy, for their lower standards. All I'm saying is that it is your experience. It's my experience that I'm upset. And I think there's nothing to be offended about. I actually think it's a beautiful thing, right? If we remove the judgments and say that it is a beautiful thing to feel angry. It's a wonderful thing to feel frustrated, to feel horrified. Maybe it's not a wonderful thing. It's a normal thing. It's a human thing. And it is information for me to know that, like, oh shit, I've got work to do. I have purpose here. I'm needed here. I'm choosing to feel this way because I have this value system, and I actually want to be very angry at the things that piss me off. I want to be sad at the things that make me sad in this world. And there's nothing wrong with that, nothing bad with that. And we can just take a big breath of relief and not have to be angry and blaming the company. We just accept that, of course, the company is doing what they need to do. And of course, I'm doing what I need to do. And of course, I'm angry. Yeah, I am someone who cares about this patient in front of me, or project or collaboration or whatever your business is or whatever it is. And it's okay. And that's going back to the whole idea that life is 50-50. And there's nothing wrong with being pissed off, with being upset. It's just a message to me that I'm living out of alignment with my values. And now I have this opportunity to realign myself. And we can even take it a step further to say, if there is no good and bad emotion, if there's no wrong and right emotion, then I can just get really curious about, how is this anger, frustration impacting me? When I'm acting in blame and frustration towards my company, and I have this thought, let's just quickly go through a model. I have a thought that this isn't right. I feel angry. I feel self-righteous. And you know what I end up doing? I spend a lot of time fuming and ruminating and judging, and a lot of inaction. And the result in my life is that I don't allow it to be right. Remember that our thought-feeling combination only affects us. It doesn't change what the company is experiencing, or the patient experiencing, or my colleague experiencing. It's just affecting how I'm experiencing this situation. And remember that everything flows out from me. So if I'm not allowing it to be right, then I'm also not allowing myself to be part of the solution. So maybe that emotion isn't the right tool for the job. Now, you could be some of the rare people that the anger is a really effective emotion, and from the anger, you're fired up and you're pissed and you're making phone calls and you're, advocating and you're in action mode. Then that's a beautiful thing. Because yeah, it's an uncomfortable emotion, but at least it's driving you to be the solution, part of the solution, and bring part of the solution outside of you. But if you're, like many of us who, once we hit an uncomfortable emotion, we get paralyzed, or we get in this ineffective frenzy, then we just have to figure out an emotion that makes it effective. So maybe instead of thinking only the thought this isn't right, maybe I just also tack on to that, this isn't right, and I'm going to effing change it. right? And just by putting in that small word and, we bridge ourselves to this new thought of, I'm going to change it. And now I feel motivating. I feel I'm going to be propelled forward to find a solution just by adding on, this isn't right, and I'm going to change it. I feel determined. I feel, in action. And now my action line, my life is full of action instead of inaction. I'm brainstorming. I'm advocating. I'm speaking up. I'm getting on the phone with other people. I'm reaching out to, leadership. I'm reaching out to other colleagues and other companies. I'm reaching out to the patient. I'm advocating. I'm teaching. I'm in a lot of action. I didn't have to come to peace with the fact that I don't think it's right that the company is not providing the best for the patient. I don't have to come to peace with that. I can still hold on to my belief system, to my judgments, to my anger. And I just have to realize that when I stop with the anger, I don't transmute it. And just because I'm taking a lot of action doesn't mean it's always going to work. Here's a silly example, and I can't remember if we've used it before, but if I have 10 envelopes and one of them has a $100 bill in it, and you start opening envelopes and you see an empty one after an empty one, you're going to have maybe one of two reactions. One person is going to be like, this is bullshit. This woman is lying. There is no $100 bill. And they leave all of the envelopes and they just stop. But the other person might be like, oh my God, I've opened 2 empty envelopes. That means there's only 7 left that are empty. I can't wait to open another one. And you start opening it faster and faster. And you're making it, after every empty envelope you see, you're not making it mean that there's never an empty envelope and that I'm a liar. You're making it mean that you're one step closer to that $100 bill. And you're getting excited. And your belief system that there is a $100 bill in there is being fortified with every empty envelope, because you see it as one step closer to that $100 bill. Now, I might have lied, and there actually is no $100 bill in any of those envelopes. But the only way you're going to know is if you open up all the 10 envelopes. And the same might be true at your job. You might carry this thought of determination that this is not right, and I'm going to effing change it. And you might try for days, for weeks, for a month, for years, and you might never change it. You might never get to that 10th envelope that has a $100 bill. That's real. Or you might get to that 10th envelope and there's no $100 bill. That's a real possibility. However, look at all the things you've achieved because you were willing to try, because you were willing to change the outcome, even if it actually never changed. How much did you evolve in the trying to get there? How much did you make your company better? Maybe you raised awareness. Maybe you educated them. Maybe you provided opportunities. Maybe you, 1,000 things that you could have done as a strategic byproduct just to your belief that you could be part of the solution. How much better did you leave that company? How much better did you leave yourself? How much more did you evolve as a human in your creativity, your compassion, your, collaboration, your advocacy, all of it, just by trying to overcome this challenge? And maybe at the end of the day, the worst case scenario is you don't create the actual change that you envisioned. But maybe there's also some room for you opened up doors that would have never been opened without you and are actually forging other paths that later lead to a change greater than what you could have imagined. Who knows? It's only part of our judgment. But along the way, you empowered yourself to own your own experience, to not be a victim to it, and to influence your life and drive yourself into action, to be the change for the company and to invite the change to the company. You lived out your purpose. You lived in alignment with your values. And at least you changed yourself, if not probably people around you and eventually others around you. And you did all of that without ever having to wait for the company to change, for them to have to do anything. You didn't have to wait to feel better. You could just choose to accept exactly where you are, to choose to accept the anger, but also find freedom in the anger, find choice in the anger, find agency and direction and intention in the anger that no one could give to you and that no one can take away from you. You could repurpose it. You could live in alignment with who you are and what you believe in from start to finish. Whether you got the goal or not, whether you made the change or not, at least you changed it for you. You became part of the solution. You evolved in the process. Probably you evolved your company, your community, and look at all the fruits of your labor that you left behind just because you were committed to changing from the inside out and taking the self-responsibility and the self-freedom to do that action that only you can give yourself. And hopefully you have peace at the end that you did everything within your personal power to achieve that goal, and at least have peace that you lived the life in alignment with you without, again, anyone needing to give it to you, without being a victim to things outside of you. So for our ending tradition, just some questions for you to chew on. Where in your life do you already feel powerful and aligned? Can you explore those areas where you do feel powerful and aligned are directly connected to allowing yourself to have the choice to live it out? And where in your life do you feel powerless or out of alignment? Can you see that it's not because things are being taken away from you, your power is being taken away from you, but either because you're not allowing yourself to be in your truth and you're giving your power away, or you're blaming those circumstances and you're waiting for someone to come change it so that you can feel powerful? Can you see that even though a situation might not be right, it's not okay, that you can remember your power by giving yourself the choice to accept things the way that they are, and how that opens you back up to deciding on purpose and being part of the solution on how you interact with those things that are not okay? I'm wishing you all play and possibility and peace. Thank you for joining me for another episode. I'm wishing you to feel supported in this space and so honored to be a part of your soul tribe. Sending you love and see you next week. Bye.